to talk about the experience of living in Iran as a woman. Everything is different now, and certainly I experienced many new feelings. Actually, I'm talking about the movement that started 3 months ago. I don't know if it's good enough to call it a movement, a revolution, or a big change. Living on the operation can make you a person with many issues, many contradictions, anger, and many other feelings that you obviously have during your childhood. But now we are aware that this operation can lead to a revolution. I recorded in a completely distressing and abnormal moment. What is really horrible is that we are used to this abnormal situation. I think when you live under a totalitarian regime, your experience of any horrible event or situation would be different. It's such a complicated system that you can't easily find out how is your personality formed, because when you're a child, it takes time to find out what precisely belongs to you, what kind of person you want to be, and what kind of a style you want to have to choose. Um, for example, I remember that when I was a primary school student, most of the children at my age like to wear hijab. And after Jashn Taglif, which is a celebration when you're at 9, the age of the religious possibilities, girls are really eager to wear hijab because of the brainwashes that happen in the schools. But now I totally hate to even see the photos of mine at that age, especially at that celebration. Um, it's one of the thousand pressures that I don't want to remind. However, my current character has been made by spending time in this religious country with encountering numerous limitations. But I've always thought that I have two identities, especially when I grow up and make my own relationships. I'm sure that many other women have this feeling, particularly those who are migrating. And I think the most common usual feeling that we experience is wearing a hijab outside and taking it off inside, while most of us don't believe in wearing it that even in public places. I remember once I was in my second year of university, um, and we had a group of mixed girls and boys. It was my birthday, and I had a party at our house. I remember one of my friends, who is my close friend now, said to me and my friend that he didn't imagine that we are like this. He couldn't imagine how we should be without a hijab, because he had always seen us at the university with suitable uniforms that is appropriated for the strict rules of the security of the university. I can say is one of those things that are really exotic, when you describe it for foreign people. You have to be profound to understand this, because it might be really usual for Iranian people now, but I don't know, could anyone abroad feel this? I'm talking about the dilemma that creates our characters, our relationships, our life. And obviously hijab is one of the biggest of those dilemmas, but it's stupid if we thought that all these disorders and unusual things are because of hijab. I'm sure gender discriminations, not having basic rights, and just drowning in limitations makes you a person full of issues, and you feel like you don't have any youth. Because as a person who grew up in an Iranian family as a girl, you experience lots of stress and happy moments. Mm, but I can say, after all these negative things that are obviously true, there are some advantages to living on the operation, and it is that you will deal with big problems even in chaotic situations, and it will make you feel stronger, and maybe you just try to do a thing. I mean, to be more creative in your career. I think, yes, sometimes you're more creative in a limited condition, because you try to replace a sign, a word, an image, or many things just to convey your thoughts. But who wants to be creative but not free? I think no one.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to chapter 98 of The Last Thoughts of a Busy Mind. This one titled, If I Didn't See You. That's a quote taken from Truman Show, which the full quote is, if I'm not mistaken, if I didn't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. The reason for that is, before we get there, let me talk to you about my drink, is carbonated drink with vitamin B2, B6, C, and niacin. I don't know. It's a thing I drink to keep me awake. It tastes like medicine. Um, the reason for that is I haven't slept last night. I'm recording this at around 12 p.m., 11:52 a.m. exact. If you want to know, the reason the episode is named that is because what I've been saying in all of these episodes as the end that I don't know when they will crack down on VPNs has happened this week. It actually happened last Friday after I uploaded my episode. Um, yeah, they've been cracking down on VPNs. A lot of the stuff that used to work, they don't work anymore, and the stuff that do are not very stable. So there is a slight chance you will not even hear this. Yeah, it's not it's not good. It's actually very anxiety inducing because whenever they do this, it means they're gonna be more wild and crazy and bloodthirsty than before, which is the case for a few cities. Like again in Ize, they have started shooting at people. Well, I will see if you get to hear from me again next week, but as we are going with this season, you heard from my friend talking about living under oppression at the beginning of the episode. And she mentioned something. I do actually, again, as I'm sorry, that's my phone. I don't know why I don't edit this. Why don't I edit this? I don't know. I'm sorry, again, anxiety is one of the things that gets me tongue tied. I've said it before, I will never understand the full experience of a woman in Iran because I am not a woman, I am a man, and I'm actually very, like, I look like a normal Middle Eastern man, so I'm not really bullied or pressured that much. I was pretty big physically as well, so I will never understand the kind of oppression that they went through. But she mentioned something which is contradicting lives, and I've talked about that before. I can't explain why I feel that way. It requires doing something I'm not yet ready to do. But I can tell you that I understand it, and that is a big part of it because, yeah, the feeling that she said her friend felt, I felt that way the first time. You are with your uni friends and you go home and you realize, oh, what they wear outside of the home is not their usual attire. It's an attire enforced on them by a patriarchal regime. And I don't care what you, if you listen to this and you're outside of Iran, or if you're inside of Iran, I don't care what you think about tradition or religious beliefs or religious freedom. The fact is, none of those matter here when it's a word of law. It is in the law itself that women should wear hijab. That is important. It's not just a tradition or it's a cultural thing, it's a legal thing. And that is incredibly important, by the way, because I think a lot of people do actually waver that. And that actually brings me to another thing that my friend also mentioned at the end, like, oh, it makes us creative. And it's something that I've heard a lot from a lot of creative people outside of Iran and inside of Iran that, like, oh, people like in more free countries, in order to get ideas, do all this crazy stuff, and while we walk out of the door and there are like a ton of ideas right there. And that is true. That is true. Living under oppression is good for creativity when you can actually express that, because you can't express it in Iran. Like, I can't tell the stories that I want to tell in Iran, and I'm know at least a couple dozen other people who can't do that. So that might give you the impression, and this is something that I've heard a lot. I mean, we heard it a lot when the war in Ukraine happened. That it's like, oh, these are European people; they're not used to this. And what they were alluding to were Middle East, because apparently we're used to this. We're used to living under oppressive regimes. We're used to constant conflicts. I mean, in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Um, and it's like there is a distorted view of life in Iran that is, oh, it's this living under oppression, but the people are used to it. They're used to having this contradiction in their life. They used to wear something outside and wear something else inside. It's just something they're used to. And you know what? There is a tiny bit of merit there. Yeah, we're used to it. As my friend mentioned, yeah, when we were growing up, I would have been a traditionalist because I actually was when I was in middle school. Like, I was thinking, oh, all of these traditions are very important, and then you get to thinking about them critically and realize, no, you're not. You've just been fucking brainwashed by an education system so outdated in its critical thinking and in its, well, curriculum, that it's basically telling you state propaganda from the 1980s. It's not even new propaganda, it's propaganda from the 1980s. I mean, they have updated them since we were in school, because I've read, I have a few cousins who go to school, and I've read their books, and they have changed it. Not for the better, by the way. They have removed sections about the history, especially about pre-revolution history. They have removed a lot of literary works. A few of the important politicians and poets in Iranian history and literary history have been completely removed. So yeah, it is state propaganda in form of education, and they do brainwash you. My family was religious. I've talked about that before. My paternal family was incredibly religious at the time. But my maternal family wasn't, and I was with that contradiction. But I was religious, not because I was spending most of the time in my paternal family, because I went to a school, and even though it was like a modern school, which means it wasn't really run with religious preoccupations, it was still propaganda. I still felt every bit of propaganda that they were pushing. Be careful. Smallest of things. Girls don't have long hairs. I'm sorry, girls. Boys don't have long hairs, which I do, by the way. I do now, but yeah, it's something very, and they will. By the way, about hijab, they actually told us about hijab. We are an all-boys school because in Iran every school is separated by gender. We have gender segregation. They told us that if girls in our family show their hair to people who they shouldn't show hair to, they will hoist them up in hell when they die. They will hoist them up by their hair. I want you to imagine, they told that to us when we were 9. So yeah, that contradiction, that life, it's not something we're used to. It's something that we are getting used to. We're told we should get used to. And sadly, that is not something exclusive to Islamic Republic or Middle Eastern governments. It's something of a world problem that, oh, this region, it needs to be in constant conflict. There is historical reason behind it, because it has been a region in constant conflict, because it's in the literal fucking middle of 3 continents. Like, you can't leave from one continent to another by land and not go through this. So yeah, Genghis Khan attacked it, Alexander attacked it, Um, Timur attacked it, the Afghans attacked it, the Arabs attacked it. So yeah, everyone attacked it. So it has been a constant conflict zone, but that doesn't mean it needs to be. That doesn't mean we're used to it. That doesn't mean we don't feel it. We do feel it. The fact that so much I talked about normalcy, I talked about mental health. Throughout this season alone is because we are not used to this stuff. We are not used to the constant barrage of uh, bad stuff happening to us, to murders, executions, oppressive regimes, religious traditionalism. All of this is imposed on us, and whenever we yell for it, yell for help, we get a hand wave of, oh, these people are used to it. That is why my friend hesitates to call it a revolution. I mean, I do. I think it is a revolution, but my friend doesn't, because it's not the first time that it's happened. Yeah, I say it's different, and in many ways, I do believe it is, but it's not the first time that it happened. We're not used to this. That is, if there is one thing I want you to get out of this, is that by listening to this, is that the people in Iran right now, facing executions, murders, getting killed in the streets, are not used to it. The Islamic Republic is not something we're used to. It's not something we accept. It's not something we want. We are fighting it. We are trying to dismantle it. We are trying to dismantle the patriarchy that is inherent in these lands. And we are doing it as best as we can. But if you are living outside of Iran, we do need help. I don't know if you will listen to this or not, but do pressure people to remember this. We are not used to it. It does give us creativity, but again, as my friend said, who chooses creativity over freedom? I'm pretty sure both me and a few dozen people I know are incredibly creative people. Like, they will tell you stories that will knock your socks off. Great writers, great filmmakers, great musicians, great creative spirits. They cannot reach any of those creative potentials in Iran. There is no way. Because the stories they want to say contradict the state. And the state will not give them a voice. And it is important in a country like in Iran, in a totalitarian regime, that states give you a voice. Because otherwise, you have no voice. Sorry, I got a little bit worked up at the end there, but that is important. Uh, you look out and you realize that to the rest of the world, your existence is like an amusement ride. You know, they're there for the ride, but we are used to it. You know, when you go there, you don't really think about the animatronic on the amusement ride, and we are those animatronic to the most of the world, and that is discouraging. That is hurtful. But we are not used to it. And I want you, if you're Iranian and listening to this, I want you to remind yourself of this. This is not normal. Islamic Republic is not normal. This is not our normal life. We are not used to this. We cannot get used to this. It's not life. It's important to remind yourself of that, because then you don't stand for bullshit that they try to impose on you. This is not our normal lives. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't have been. But it is. But it was forced on us. But it was forced. Remember that. It's not normal. It's not our culture. It's not our tradition. It's not our lives. We are not used to this. So I keep banging on about that. That's important. Hopefully, I don't know if you will hear this or if you will ever hear from me again, but if you don't, please be our voice.